Fired up for today's guest. We talk about mental toughness all the time. This guy, I think you guys know him for his 10,363 consecutive snaps. I don't even know how many Pro Bowl, every year going to the Pro Bowl, 8-time All-Pro. My man Joe Thomas from the Cleveland Browns. What's up, brother?
What's up, Bruce? Thanks for having me on your podcast, man.
I'm fired up to have you because you have so much like good experience with all us different quarterbacks you played with. But I can't imagine playing that many snaps in a row. And people might think, oh, he just never was injured. That's how he did it. Uh, but I can't wait. But more importantly, I think I brought you on here today to talk about your success at Wisconsin in the track and field department.
Now we're talking. Yeah, that is the nitty gritty of my career right there.
All right, brother. Well, let's get this thing going.
Hey, I'm Bruce Gradkowski, founder of the Alpha 5 Method. We're going to be talking to some of my friends, former NFL players, other high achievers, entrepreneurs, people that have beat cancer. Those are the kind of people you're going to be hearing from on the Alpha 5 Method podcast.
My brother, Hall of Famer. I just want to read this quote to you because this is from one of your former teammates, Joe Thomas. His preparation, technique, and meticulous nature is what made him so great. He was a physical specimen that knew how to use his leverage to his advantage, but his technique was impeccable. His punch and hands were always accurate and violent. His pass sets looked the same every rep. Consistency was key. It didn't matter if he was blocking Von Miller, Suggs, James Harrison, or Dwight Freeney. It was always his set, his way, and it worked. We were always competing in our room. He set the standard and held everyone in the room accountable. We had fun though. Jets Pizza in the equipment room on Wednesdays as a treat for post pads. Word of the day during the pre-practice, before the pre-practice. So, brother, you're like the ultimate teammate. And just hearing those words, I mean, what goes through your mind?
Well, anytime you have a quote about an offensive lineman, it makes me proud when Jets Pizza and food makes it into that equation because we always had a good time. We always worked hard, but we always celebrated around the dinner table. And I think that was, part of one of the things that brought us together as linemen is we always like to be around each other, right? There's no egos in an offensive line room because we're not the guys that ever score touchdowns. And I think we relish in that a little bit, calling ourselves mushrooms and getting together and eating. That was like the pinnacle of offensive line life.
I just wonder though, do you miss those days? Because you're like lean and fit, you look good. Do you let yourself eat pizza anymore or what?
I do. Obviously I'm not eating it every day like I was when I was playing and I was trying to keep that weight on, but certainly I still love to eat, probably now more than ever, right? Because I don't eat all the time like a maniac, like it's Thanksgiving dinner. So the times that I do go out with friends and let myself go and eat the pizza and the pasta and the ice cream and all the good stuff, I definitely enjoy it. And I definitely go ham and then regret it in the morning.
Now, what were you weighing when you played? Because I know my brother Gino was like 295, but he dropped weight like pretty easy just because he had to try to maintain and keep it on. Was that the same for you? Like when you stopped playing, did the weight come off pretty easy, or was it kind of a grind to get to where you are?
Yeah, I was always a guy that had to eat a lot to maintain my weight. And so for me, when I started losing weight in retirement, the first, 20, 30 pounds was pretty easy because that was like the stuff that I had to force into my body every day. But then once I got down to like 270, then you had to focus and be just um, emphasize with intention, what you were eating every day and making sure that, the plate was filled up with plenty of greens every day if you were hungry and not the bad stuff, the processed stuff. So you're getting your calories from good vegetables and your proteins.
Well, it's not even like though, like you slimmed down and lost weight. Like you're actually like shredded though. Like you were like what I wanted to look like as I was playing.
Yeah. Yeah. Not quite Miles Garrett, but I try to watch what I eat. I just got out of the pool, did some swimming today, do some yoga. And so staying active has always made me feel really good. Now that I'm old and retired and still broken down from the NFL days, I feel like I got to do something every day to feel good. And it definitely helps the physique being active and now being out in Germany, walking everywhere. That definitely helps too. Like it's almost like you can't drink enough of this German beer to put body fat back on when you're walking 10 miles around the city every day.
No, that's awesome. So what got you to Germany? So you're coaching for the Munich Ravens. How did that all come about?
Yeah, I'm out here coaching in the European League of Football. I'm the offensive line coach for the Munich Ravens. This is their second year as a team. It's like the third or fourth year for the European League of Football. But actually, I was out here covering the NFL Germany game a couple years ago when the Seahawks and the Bucks played out here in Munich. Went on a podcast called the Football Bromance with Patrick Asumi and a couple other guys. And actually, from there, I just kind of expressed interest that I'd love to live and coach abroad, take my family over here someday and have an opportunity to give my kids that international experience, right? Give them some culture, rip them out of Wisconsin and Cleveland, which is kind of what they know, and give them an opportunity to kind of like start over, right? And make their life a little bit unsteady and kind of force them into some difficult situations and see how they grow from it. And also selfishly, Munich is kind of like the center of Europe, center of the world, it seems like, because you can get anywhere from here. So we've been doing a lot of traveling and trying to enjoy every little bit that we possibly can, because from here, you know, Italy's like an hour or two, Austria's an hour, Spain's close, France. And so trying to do as much as we can when we're over here. But it all started back during the NFL Germany game when I was covering the game and made some connections and said, hey, if I can pick anywhere, I want to be in Munich.
That's sweet. And the one thing though that hits me is when you talk about your kids, because I'm in that phase right now. Like, I mean, 10, 8, and 6, you know, so it's a crazy house at times. But I always think about like my career, and that's why I wanted to have you on today, because of not only your success on the football field, but like you're not that successful if you don't have like the mental toughness, the habits, the discipline that comes with it, but also facing challenges. And you're kind of setting that up now for your kids in a sense. Like, listen, we got a pretty good life back in Wisconsin, back in Cleveland. Let's be uncomfortable a little bit. Do you feel like at times in your career, can you think of a time that, you know, because all of us, we from the outside, man, like fans, I talked to some friends, and from the outside, it's like, man, it's Joe Thomas, a Hall of Famer. Like, man, look at his contracts. He made so much money. He's always been the best. He's an all-pro. But like, I don't think people really understand the amount of work and attention to detail and the mental toughness that you go through to kind of get to where you are. Kind of talk about that, but also how you brought in with your kids, how you're trying to set them up so they can figure things out.
Yeah, I think part of becoming a great NFL player and certainly a great offensive lineman is you have to embrace the suck. You have to embrace the challenges. You have to embrace the difficulties as opportunities to get over those hurdles, to succeed. And then you do that over and over again. And then you train yourself to actually enjoy those challenging moments, right? When the road is easy, there's no potholes. Like, it's easy to just put it on cruise control and just coast, and it's comfortable, right? But I think when you go and turn yourself into an NFL player and you have an NFL career and you have success, you learn that like when you go through those challenging moments and those low moments emotionally, mentally, physically, with your career, with your personal life, and you come out on the other side, like there's a great satisfaction that's different than just the satisfaction of, oh, that was a fun day. That was easy. Like I had no challenges, no difficulties, and trying to instill that in my kids. And I think that was one of the big things of coming over here to Germany, right? We knew we were going to be faced with a lot of challenges, the language barrier, the cultural barrier, making new friends, being in a new school. But that was only just an opportunity for these kids to learn that, hey, it's okay to do hard things. Like hard things are fun. Like at the end of the day, when you've done a lot of hard stuff, you can put your head on the pillow and you can feel really good about the day that you had. And then it just becomes a routine and it just kind of becomes who you are.
I love that, because that's what builds like your self-confidence too. That's what builds kind of who you are as a person. And we could talk about the consecutive snaps you played. Like it's insane to me to think about it, especially your position, right? I mean, the physicality it takes through training camp, through a season. When do you think, like during your career, was it actually like, oh, I've, played this many games in a row, I've started this many snaps? Like, when did it kind of hit you in that sense? Because just knowing you, that's just how you approach work. Like you're just consistent. You're going to be there for your teammates, no excuses. But then there had to be some point where you're like, oh shit, I'm embarking on something pretty cool.
Yeah, I've always been a person that makes a lot of long-term goals, and a lot of times I keep them to myself. But so when I first got to the NFL, the Cleveland media asked me, "Hey, what would you like to get out of your career?" And I said, "Hey, I'd like to be in the Hall of Fame someday." But that was kind of the last I ever talked about it, because then from that point on, I was very short-sighted in my focus. Like, hey, I just want to be great in this play. I just want to be great in this practice. I just want to be great in the season. So you just try to keep little landmarks and little hurdles to get over every single day. And so I really was just focusing on trying to get out there and be a starter as a rookie, and then trying to be great every day, just get a little bit better. And then all of a sudden, like 5-6 years in, one of the media guys, Dan Murphy, came to me and he said, "Hey, do you realize that you have not missed any snaps in your career?" And I had to think
And
about
you're
it for a
like, why'd
second.
you say that?
Yeah, right.
You're
Yeah, yeah.
like,
Thanks for jinxing me. But it was that point that I knew that I hadn't missed any plays, but it's that moment where you're like, oh, that is pretty cool. And let's keep this going. Right. And then it becomes a little bit more conscious. And then from that point on, like every year, it wasn't like it built pressure because I didn't think about it, but it certainly I felt a sense of pride as each year built upon itself, and the number got bigger and bigger until I got sort of close to 10,000. And then I started getting nervous that I was going to get hurt at like 9,987 and like my shoe falls off or something stupid happens. If I would have been hurt, like that's just part of playing in the NFL. But if something
right.
dumb happened, like my chin strap broke or my shoelaces broke and I had to
Oh,
come out for a play, like that would have been absolutely devastating after 10 years to be that close to 10,000 and have something foolish happen where you weren't able to get to that milestone.
it'd be like only quarterbacks and head coaches are allowed to utilize timeouts. You're sitting there,
Oh yeah.
chin stat, bro. Hey, timeout, timeout.
Oh yeah. It
But I
went through
love,
my head. I was not afraid to call a timeout if we were within like 10 or 20 plays.
heck yeah, man. That's awesome. But I love what you said though about you had that long term goal, right? You wanted to be a Hall of Fame player. You wanted to get into the Hall of Fame, but you had to crush those like mini goals along the way, like the day to day practice. I don't think people realize like when you enter training camp, if you start flipping those pages to see, oh, next week we have this, next you'll go crazy because of how long it is. And you got to stay just in the moment, practice, one play at a time, one practice at a time, one game at a time. So it's cool to hear you talk about just really dialing in to the specific moment. How hard was it for you? Like at times, like, and I talk about this all the time with our players in the UFL right now, is my approach always is like, don't seek comfort. This is one thing Mike Tomlin always used to say to us in Pittsburgh. Don't make excuses. Don't blame. Don't minimize your role. So when I look at you, like, and Tomlin would give examples of what minimizing your role is. And if I'm Joe Thomas, I could be in the locker room thinking, I'm an all-pro tackle. I've started thousands of snaps in a row. It's not my fault we're shit. But with that, like that's seeking comfort. That's minimizing your role. Like it's not my fault. How hard was it to battle those mental like adversities throughout your career?
Mm-hmm. You know, great coaches always talk about be where your feet are. And that's a quote that I tell my kids all the time, about just being present and focusing on the things around you, which is what you have control on. Hey, if it's not out of your control, don't even think about it because it's just wasted emotion. It's wasted energy. It's wasted thought when you could be getting yourself better. You could be focusing on what you have to do to help the dudes around you in that moment rather than worrying about what they have to do. That's the whole do your job mantra that Belichick and the Patriots and Tom Brady were famous for. But it's really a good mantra because it allows you to feel like you have a sense of control. Like people that deal with mental illness and struggles with depression and stuff like that, a lot of times it's feeling like you have a loss of control, right? And, there was times in my career where I dealt with those mental struggles because we were losing constantly. I mean, I played 11 seasons and we never made the playoffs. We had one winning season, and it's easy to get caught up in how bad your team is or the fact that whatever you do, you're not affecting the outcome. But if you bring that field of view in much closer, like right at your feet, like, all right, how can I help this team the best that I can? That's the impact I have on this team. That always made me feel a lot better. And that helped me kind of get away from that sense of that I have no control that really, takes your mind and throws it down in the gutter and kind of dives you into depression and the mentality of like, I'm doing some hard ass shit here playing in the NFL and we're getting no payoff, right? You have to have those
Right.
little goals, those little hurdles in your mind. Like, hey, I want to have a perfect game. I want to be the best at this small technique. I want to get a little bit better at that. And that gives you like little senses of accomplishment along the way that helps you distract a little bit from the lack of team success that you're having.
In that, you take that into anything you do in life, and that's what I love about it. It sounds so cliche at times. When I think about it, I'm like, man, I want my message to be perfect to the team. I want to help these guys get to where they want to go. And I think about that, but every step of the way of my journey, whether it's on the football field, business, coaching, it always has come back to focusing on what I can control, be where your feet are, like you said. Is so good and so true. And I think about it too, because in my shoes, like I come into Cleveland towards the end of the season, 2008, but you were always like that good, positive teammate that like a guy like me, like, shoot, man, I was on the street all season. I'm trying to get back in the league. All of a sudden I'm getting thrown a new playbook, new teammates, all that. But you guys, that's why I've always loved the offensive linemen, because like it's normal dudes. You know what I mean? And you could chop it up. You're going to eat good. But you've had, 20 different quarterbacks. What was your approach when you kind of saw the cycle going? Like, were you conscious of like, shoot, I got to help this dude out a little bit, or at least make him feel a little comfortable coming in? Was there anything in your mind as you continue to see the doors open and close through these quarterbacks?
Yeah, I mean, I always just tried to be the same guy every day, right? Like I tried to be optimistic and positive and lift my teammates up. I think that kind of that positive attitude towards the work that you do, which is hard work. Like it's not easy being in the NFL. It's not easy going to practice every day and getting the most out of yourself. But I think trying to do it in a fun way, trying to find little fun things that you can do that make hard things easy, like having the word of the day. Like we used to do that. Every single day. Like, all right, who's got an interesting, fun word? We can talk about it. We can do it during the stretch line, just to kind of take your mind off some of the drudgery of the sport.
Right.
Like, hey, let's get excited. We got Jets Pizza after practice today. Let's go have a great practice, put in that work, and then we'll feel like we earn it, right? And so just doing little stuff like that.
Now, the word of the day, like, give me an example. Is it like you guys got to fit in that word throughout practice, or is this just like,
so yeah, we would assign a player like the word of the day. And so he's in charge of coming up with like a fun, like hard vocabulary word. And then he would define it at the beginning of the day in meetings. And then we always had kangaroo court, right? Where we'd find each other for doing stupid shit, like, throwing someone under the bus, or if you make a mental mistake, or if you fart in a meeting, or, you self-suck, which is like, hey, coach, can you go back? How do you think the left tackle did on that play, right? When you're like pancaking somebody. So those are like little fines, but you could earn money too. Like if you had the word of the day and you used it naturally within a sentence in a meeting in front of the coaches or something like that, you could get a little bit of money out of the kitty, out of the kangaroo court fine bucket. So just doing stuff like that, like trying to keep your mind busy, keep your mind on things that are fun, that are group oriented, that could help you just kind of get through some of the more difficult things. Nothing ever to distract you, but just that little stuff that would make people feel comfortable. And when new guys came in, like when you came in towards the end of the season, like all of a sudden they feel right at home, because it's not a us versus them, or he's a new guy and we've been here a while. It's like, hey, we're just one big family and we got a common goal.
Man, I love that. That's so good. I'm definitely bringing that to the UFL. There's going to be like a fine bucket, especially the one. Hey, coach, can you rewind? I want to see the receiver's route, but like he throws a dime.
Oh yeah. We've all been in that situation, and we've all been around that guy that does it like every day, right? Like he's usually the guy that fucks up the most, and then all of a sudden, like the one time he does, well, hey, coach, can you rewind that one?
Man, I love that. Through your whole journey, like when you look back, who was probably one of the most influential people in your life? And I know like so many people have impacted you, and because in all of our journeys, man, if you're not surrounded by the right people, whether it's friends, parents, grandparents, cousins, brothers, we all need help on our journey. I think that's so important, whether it's honest to goodness, truth and sincerity and being genuine. And Hawk's always good with that. Hawk's going to tell me the truth whether I want to hear it or not. Lance Moore's always been held me accountable in that sense. I remember at Toledo saying, why do you think they brought in that JUCO transfer QB? They planned for him to be the starter. And I'm like, bro, you're my boy. Why are you telling me this? And it's just the honest truth. Like, when you look at your career, growing up, and where do you think you got your mentality from, your work ethic, the just attention to details? Like, who's kind of impacted you the most?
Yeah, I think the most out of anybody is probably my parents. My dad was a big impact in my life, and they didn't know anything about football, right? They just knew a lot about life, and they were very direct. They were very honest. They gave me good values, hard work, toughness, discipline. Like, this is the way it is, and you can choose decisions and consequences, and whatever you choose, like, there's going to be an outcome. And if it's good, like, you earned it for yourself. If it's bad, then hey, you earned that as well. And I think being honest with people is such a great way to show love and to build trust. And I tell my guys here in Munich, like, I'm going to be very honest with you. I'm going to be direct. And it works good because that's very big in the German culture. Like, they tell you exactly how they feel. And it's not from a place of like being mad or emotion. It's just like, this is how you made me feel. Like, we have a lady below us that has already come up and complained about the noise of the kids' feet on the floor in our apartment. Like, and she's not mad about it. And it's weird as an American to have somebody say that, because our culture is much more like shrouded, like, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. Everything's great. They don't want to let anybody know that anything's okay or not okay. But here is a little different. But I think building that trust and showing love, like, especially with teammates and friends, like, you build that by just being very direct and honest. Like, hey, this may be hard for me to tell you, but it's the truth. And I think you need to hear it because you may not see it because you're experiencing it through your eyes and it affects you. And you have this bias based on the information that's coming to you because you are protective of your own ego and your own feelings a lot of times. But having that player or that friend around you, like Hawk was a lot too for me towards the end of my career. And then since I've retired, like, where somebody will tell you exactly how it is, because then you always know if you need honest to goodness feedback on something, and somebody will not sugarcoat it and tell you exactly how it is so you can make a good decision. Like, that's the person you go to. And a lot of times it's a spouse. Like, my wife's like that with me, but my parents were that person growing up, and I think they built a great foundation.
Isn't it tough though when it's your wife that does it? Mine does it all the time. And
Sometimes
I'm
they're a
like,
little too negative. Like, you're
yeah.
that's not really how it is.
I'm like, come on, babe. Like, can you just kind of act like I'm a big deal sometimes?
Yeah,
Like,
love it.
no, that's awesome. Now, what about like coaches, like maybe a head coach that you've seen come and go because you've had a lot of them, but maybe that didn't quite get the credit they deserve? I mean, we watch it all the time. We continue to keep an eye on the NFL and all that. And you see this business is crazy. Like, coaches will get fired and you're like, dang, he's a good coach though. Or teams will be winning and you're like, man, they just got good players. Like, have you been around a coach that comes to mind where you're like, this coach was so good, he never really got the maybe respect that he deserved?
Well, I tell people all the time, like, fans, they don't understand. I'm like, these NFL coaches are the best coaches in the world. Now, there may be some better coaches in college. There may be some bad coaches that got their job because, they've been around a while and their buddy got the head coaching job, but they're still really good coaches. Like, you take any of those guys, we'll take them all in Europe. Like, there's great coaches in Europe too, but like in the NFL, they've been doing this for their career for a very long time and they're really good. And so there's great coaches that get fired every single week in the off season, it seems like, and every season they're getting canned. And it doesn't mean they're a bad coach. It's just maybe was a tough situation, because to actually realize if a coach is a great coach as a fan and appreciate it, I think you have to have like half luck. And then the other half is you're actually a great coach for the situation you're in, because without great players in the NFL and a great situation, support from the ownership, support from the fans, you can't have a success no matter how good you are. And I think one coach I had that I think about is Kyle Shanahan. Obviously, he's gotten the respect now that he's been in San Francisco and when he was a coordinator in Atlanta. But I think when we had him, nobody really appreciated how good of a coach he was. And I think we were 7-9 when he was our offensive coordinator, and that was a good season by our standards. But I mean, he left and the staff got fired the next year, so it's not like we had great success. But you saw that he saw the big picture And that was the first time I had an offensive coordinator that understood how to marry the run and the pass and who could coach all 11 guys just as good as their position coach on that offense.
I think it was that season too. You guys coming to Pittsburgh for opening day, and I think we're winning. What was it, like 20 something, like 21-0 or 24-0 in the first half, and then you guys come back and tie it. But watching that offense, and Brian Hoyer was lighting it up. I just love seeing things like that throughout the NFL. Guys, and we're seeing Kyle Shanahan right now, what he's doing, and it's pretty remarkable, especially me, you being offensive guys. I love seeing that. I want to talk about the NIL stuff, just throwing yourself back at Wisconsin. What, big disc thrower were you?
Shot and disc. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No NIL money with the shot and disc, I tell you that.
Yeah. But talk about that. Like, I mean, you ever look back and you're like, man, what could I have made it at Wisconsin with these NIL deals, or what's going on in college football now?
Yeah, I don't think about it too much. I know that I wouldn't have had to scrape the bottom of the piggy bank and look for change in the couch quite as often for pizza money and beer money when I was at Wisconsin. Had there been NIL, and I'm sure, like, if I played now, there would be some money for offensive linemen, and it is a little bit like free agency where guys are getting paid based on how good they are, not just how popular they are. Because in the NFL, we all have a salary, but then the guys that get the big endorsements are the popular players, right? And it's not quite the same system in college, but I do get a sense that the NIL dollars get exaggerated a little bit because of ego and other things. They're certainly getting paid, and I think it's good that guys are starting to get paid for the value that they bring to their team and their colleges. I know it's kind of a messy system right now because the NCAA waited way too long to do the right thing and allow human beings to own the rights to their name and their image,
right.
Which was crazy to think that for many decades, the NCAA said that if you decide to play football or any sport in our collegiate athletic association, we now own your name, your image, and we can do whatever we want with it to make money for us, but you can't. It's kind of a crazy concept to think about it. Certainly it worked for them and it worked for fans because college football has been super popular for a long time. But I think once they work the kinks out of the system and they figure out, all right, how do we get to more of a free market system where guys are actually getting paid that reflect the value that they bring, and it's more of an organized system, I think in the end, the long run, it's going to be better than what it was, certainly.
Well, I think you should be the Roger Goodell of the NCAA. I mean, they need someone like that, which would be cool. I keep going back to the 10,363 number, and I know you've heard it like a million times, but to me, just going through and really trying to help others on their journey, like I just see that number and I'm like, gosh, man, the consistency that it comes with, like through that time. And I asked you before a little bit, but do you remember any specific times when you're like, you know what, I really don't think I can go this week? Like I am beat up, like, because people see maybe a torn muscle, a torn bicep, an ACL, a specific injury, and that's why the player's out. But they don't realize how many injuries you're actually getting throughout the course of a season. Do you remember any specific time where you're like, man, I think this is it this week?
There's a saying in the NFL that the injury rate is 100% because everybody that plays, you get hurt. It just depends on how hard you get hit and how much you get hurt, right? Are you hurt or are you injured? Because if you get banged up bad enough and you're out and you have to go get surgery, fans understand that, right? But if you play every snap, I can't tell you how many times people have heard about me playing 10 and a half years without missing a play and said, oh, well, you never got hurt in the NFL. I'm like, well, actually I had like 4 surgeries and I barely practiced towards the end of my career because every week I was getting my knee drained twice a week. And I couldn't even go to practice because I couldn't stand on my knee. It was so bad. But hey, game day comes, you get it oiled up, you get it drained, you get the medicine, you're ready to go, and you give it everything you got on game day, and then you're wiped out for a whole week. You can barely walk. I mean, I would basically be on crutches all week, walking down the stairs backwards, sliding on my butt, and then you just get ready for game day. Like, it's just that warrior mentality that gets beat into you as an offensive lineman, as an NFL player, that you'll do anything it takes to get ready on Sunday. So, you deal with tons of injuries, and that's why guys, they walk out of the game a lot of times, they're pretty beat up, right? Because even if you didn't miss games or didn't miss plays, like you've been accumulating injuries throughout your career. But that's part of the business, right? That's part of the game of football. That's why it's a beautiful game, and it's not for long, NFL, because no matter who you are, like you get injured, you get banged up, and those things accumulate. And as you get older, it takes a little bit longer to get ready after a game and to get yourself out there. And pretty soon it's gone, and it's just a pipe dream of days gone by.
And that's what's even more impressive, I think, about your numbers, though, is the majority of the time you're on a team that you're not like having a playoff shot. You're not playing for a division title like towards the end of those years, yet you're out there day in and day out. And that's why, I think of you with having you on this podcast, because I'm so interested in people's journeys of like just the mental toughness it takes, the fortitude, the resilience, like building the right habits, all that. Now, when you kind of look at how to become successful, how you became successful, and like with you knowing Joe Thomas, you're not just the football player and that's what you do, that's why you're successful. Like anything you kind of do, you're going to be successful. That's just your approach, whether you're coaching the Munich Ravens or not, like you're taking those same attributes into that, classroom and so forth like that. But when you kind of look at it and you can kind of sum it up in a sense, like to you, what does it take to be successful? Like, how do you reach your goals? Like, what are things that come to your mind when you think of that?
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar to my career. I came in, I said I wanted to make the Hall of Fame. But how are you going to do that, right? That's your long-term goal. And then you got to come up with a series of like short-term goals that you're focused on every single day. Like for me, I just wanted to get better at one thing. How am I going to get better at one thing? Oh, I kept a very detailed notebook, and I would write one thing I wanted to get better every single day at the top of the notebook. And then I would also write how I'm going to do that, right? That's your plan for that day. And then that became my process. And so you build these good habits and this goal-oriented mindset on a daily basis. And knowing that this is your roadmap to get to where I want to go long-term, you just follow that every single day. And it seems easy and it becomes enjoyable because it becomes your routine, and your routine is who you are, right? Like I think about being out here in Germany. We love to drink beer. They have a great time. Like Munich is a beautiful city. If you ever get a chance to visit, do for sure. Like we find any reason in the world to get together in the beer gardens and celebrate. Like there's a Stark Beer Fest coming up, which is strong beer. There's a Frühlingsfest, which is a spring festival. There's Oktoberfest. Like any reason they have, like, let's get together and drink beer, which is great. I love it. But you have like a bender of a weekend. You eat crap. You eat a bunch of pizza. You eat the bad stuff. You have a great time with the boys. And then Monday, it's like, damn, I got out of my routine. It's really hard to get back in, right? But then by Friday, you've been getting up early. You've been grinding. You've been following the roadmap. You had your process. And it's like, I feel like I could do this every day because your body and your mind just go on autopilot, right? And it's one of the cool things about the human mind is how it wants to put everything on cruise control so then it can focus on the next thing. And that's all it is when you're building a process and you're building habits. Like you're building that cruise control so it becomes part of your subconscious. So your brain can now focus on more things and better things. And so the bigger your process, the bigger your routine of things that are making you a better person, that are leading you towards your goal. Now you can focus on the things that change on the periphery. So that's not me saying like you shouldn't go to Frühlingsfest and go have 10 Spaten beers or a bunch of Tegernseer. But if you do it, you just got to know that the next day it's going to be a little tougher, but the sooner you can get back into the routine and get back focused on your goal, the better off it's going to be. And I think just having that little roadmap and just focusing on one little thing, one day at a time, it makes it easy. And at the end of 3-4 years, you look back and you see the progress that you've made.
I love that, because I have a buddy trying to lose weight. He'll text me all the time and, man, but I ate a crappy dinner. I had this snack. And just like you said, it's okay. Who cares? Just try to be more consistent than not. Like if you're putting in all that hard work throughout a week, man, go out, have a good time on the weekend. Like, but then you got to lock back in, get back into the routine and all that. But always good stuff with you, my brother. I appreciate you coming on. 8-time All-Pro, Hall of Famer, 167 games in a row, 10,363 snaps in a row. You are the epitome, though, of hard work, dedication, being that team guy. So I appreciate you, brother, and good luck out there in Munich.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on the show, man. It was a great time as always. And you owe me one, though. No, I need to come back for Sunday supper at the Gradkowski house in Pittsburgh because I missed that. I need that as payoff for coming on the podcast.
Bro, you know my family would love that anytime. Like my mom, just to get me back home too. She'd be like, yes, come. All the aunts, grandma's always cooking
baby.
it up. So we got you, brother. I appreciate you.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Bruce.
The Alpha 5 Method podcast is about hearing your story. I want to hear from individuals that have overcame adversity. I want to hear their path and what has helped them achieve greatness. Go to my website now, alpha5method.com, and join the pack.